When it comes to who's on target for how this law reads, for some instructors, that's not really important. What is making the law crystal clear for those who are going to carry. And I want you to take a look. The inside of this home now filled with outside elements. The roof of the home has now dropped into the floor. And if it was daylight out, you'd be seeing it because this roof has been ripped off the top of the house. And the only place on this home that actually does have roofing is the kitchen. They were bringing their family members, high school seniors, up to Verizon Arena to go through graduation practice. And so all of this sort of unfolding suddenly. Witnesses say they heard roughly 2 or 3 shots. A lot of things working against them. As you can see here, crew members from Mississippi on the ground and trying to get a power pole actually back up. Most of us would think a latch and a deadbolt would be enough. But your locks may not really be your problem. This is something that most of us would never see in Arkansas unless we were afraid of getting busted by the DEA. So what was once thought to be a very small fire quickly became a very, very big problem. It's definitely not the Arkansas Delta, but take a look. It is cotton country. A traffic stop is just 2 steps now, from your driver's license to the computer and from your home computer to your pocketbook. All the information from your ticket is already in the system, so you can even pay online, equaling thousands of dollars that are going to repair elevators instead of pave your streets. The early morning robbery at MAPCO happened just minutes after opening the doors to customers instead of using this security window to make transactions. By officers' accounts, what started as a friendly interchange between strangers became what witnesses describe as a horrifying situation, with a stranger intervening to save a child from a suspected kidnapper. But before all of this existed hanging on racks, her entire business was only on cyberspace. Those wind gusts that you mentioned, sometimes I feel like they're about to lift me up off my feet. Is the fair really all it's cracked up to be? Was caught on the exterior surveillance video cameras, but the store's internal surveillance system not set to be upgraded until Wednesday morning. But the irony of all ironies, you have to lock the padlocks to keep them from being stolen. We arrived with the dozers, unchained, unloaded, ready to work a fire line. They hit flames 50 feet inside the woods off Highway 155 northwest of Casa.
It's off the mountain over there, and I mean it shot flames higher than that tree.
Less than 2 miles away, people like the Masons are packing up under evacuation.
Oh yes, we've been watching it. Now it's getting to the point that it's like, okay, get the kids' clothes ready and throw them in the truck. We're fixing to go.
Uncertain if everything they own will turn to ash and soot.
I don't want to leave all my stuff I like.
I know, sweetie, but you know what? We can replace. Stuff you can replace, we can't replace y'all.
A lot of hands on deck here in Perry County, been that way throughout the afternoon. Incident Command initially thought that this fire was going to be rather small, easily put out. So what was once thought to be a very small fire quickly became a very, very big problem.
This one exploded about 4 o'clock and they started calling for evacuations.
If we hit those pastures, we'll be okay. We can fight it better down there.
Incident Command abuzz as responders rework the plan of attack. From the air and on the ground.
We have quite a bit of wind that is not helping, and it's dry.
They're forced to wonder how close it will hit to home. At this point, I guess you're hoping you'll have a home to come back to.
I'm hoping we will, but if not, that's God's will.
While realizing their fate remains in the air with the smoke.
Can you sit?
At Jill Latham's house, if it looks like a dog and behaves like a dog,
Good, sit.
it's just as likely to be a pig.
The neighbors have not taken kindly to him at all.
Suey is a potbelly,
He's an indoor pet.
but he may be hightailing it out of town since Animal Control has told Jill to remove the pig or they will.
He lived in my townhouse in the city of Little Rock for 7 months, and nobody had any problems with him.
Before buying Suey, she checked city ordinances, which specifically allow for potbelly pigs.
You have to go further down to the section that talks
According to
about
Andre Bernard, there are additional provisions for hoofed animals or livestock,
You still have to comply with the rest of the ordinance.
which Jill is accused of violating, a 300-foot buffer from the nearest neighbor on any lot inside the city.
Even a structure, a house, it still sits on a lot. So it would still be in violation.
It's a football field. There's not 300 feet from one end of my lot to the other end of his lot.
Jill's neighbor Don Rawls, not wanting to be on camera, tells us his issue isn't with the animal,
They were smelling bad. They draw flies.
but what it leaves behind.
She didn't want to clean up the manure.
Which is why the city says the boundary is required. Jill tells us she follows the 48-hour rule to pick up after both her dogs and Suey to keep the yard clean.
He's not an issue. He doesn't bark like a dog does. He doesn't cause any problems.
So now, if Suey remains by Jill's side, is up to a city judge.
Now, Jill is slated to appear in front of a judge next week who will have the final word on how the ordinance should be interpreted. If he finds against her, Jill plans to appeal.
What happens, though? I mean, is there a possibility she may have to get rid of Suey?
She is thinking about that, but right now she doesn't even want to consider a contingency plan. She bought the pig, went through the ordinances, so she says, trying to be careful. She didn't intend to have to give it away. She didn't want to be that pet owner. But there are some rescues for potbelly pigs who are no longer welcome inside city limits or don't meet the parameters, and so she will look to those. She actually works in some rescue work herself for transporting dogs and things of that nature. So those are her options.
You were around it. I'm sorry. Is it like a pet? I mean, is the pot-bellied pig really like a pet, like a dog?
For every reasoning that you would have for a pet, it walks on a leash, it sits. I mean, it sat for me for a marshmallow.
Does it say sit when you say sit?
Yeah, it sits. I mean, it takes him a little bit more. He's a little stockier, so he has to kind of scooch and sit. It's a two-part process. It leaves both groups without an option right now except to disband, leaving 22 scouts wondering where they'll call home.
It was just a good time to enjoy and be a kid.
Since 5th grade, Sean Cass has been camping, hiking, and canoeing as a member of Troop 542.
I got so upset I had to walk out and leave.
On Tuesday night, this Eagle Scout was caught off guard, learning the troop's future might be in peril.
It was very, very heartbreaking. I saw a bunch of little kids crying over something that they shouldn't have to deal with.
First Baptist Church of Gravel Ridge has been Cass's troop sponsor for a decade.
It's the boys, 12 and up that are going to be hurting for this.
But Tuesday, church leadership announced it was revoking the charter immediately in light of a national policy decision to lift the ban on openly gay troop members.
Penalty there, which is due.
According to senior pastor Tim Reed, the decision guided by God's word.
Scripture makes it very clear that homosexuality is a sin.
Reed believes Boy Scouts of America broke its agreement with the church by condoning homosexuality, saying the message he must send is the Lord's.
It's not a hate thing here. It's a moral stance that we must take as a Southern Baptist church.
Cass wants to see the Scouts continue.
This is for the boys. This isn't for the adults.
Hoping someone will help out by offering his troop a new place to call home.
Now, according to the church, they're not trying to exclude anyone from their congregation. They say they simply can't condone this stance on homosexuality. Now, the Boy Scouts organization, the area council members here are trying to search for a new charter organization to take up and support Troop 542. Most of us do our shopping face-to-face with someone behind a counter or with an online company, but sometimes the sweet prices on Craigslist can tempt us to respond to a total stranger, and that's what has law enforcement wanting Arkansans to be cautious. Some shoppers like Bernicia Ridgel prefer the in-store experience.
I thought they were just cute.
Instead of looking for deals online through the classifieds listed on Craigslist.
I'll rather go shop in a mall, stores, because it's not safe.
On Wednesday, Pine Bluff police say 2 men met up with the seller after seeing car rims for sale on Craigslist. Officers say the seller attempted to rob them of their cash and left one in the hospital after shooting him in the head.
I would ever meet up with anyone. It's not safe.
You don't want to put yourself in a bad situation that you really don't have to be in.
Lieutenant Carl Minden with the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office seeing more crimes from online deals gone bad across central Arkansas.
I mean, it's not an everyday occurrence, but it is something that people need to be aware of.
Buyers should be aware of who's making the offer.
It may be an ulterior motive, one, to rob you, which you've seen a couple of cases recently in the central Arkansas area.
And where they want to do the deal.
You meet them someplace, you need to be careful where you meet them.
Sellers can also be at risk, like one UALR student held at gunpoint on campus for the iPad he listed to sell through the site.
Obviously, the perpetrator came here with a different agenda.
At the end of the day, Ridgel says the real question is, are you willing to take the risk?
So you have to be careful.
She'll stick to shopping in stores where security and sales clerks can see her coming and going. A few other tips: don't give out your home address if you're selling items online, and if you do decide to buy or sell, choose to meet up in a public place, preferably in daylight. You can even make that meetup location outside your local law enforcement office.
Always constant, Jessica, and we're here, and the people at the American Red Cross are sort of wrapping up their day, but empty seats like these are something that they never like to see, and that is the problem because the need is constant. And you know, we hear it all the time: a pint of blood can save 3 lives, but who are the people we're saving? Well, tonight I want to introduce you to a young man whose life actually depends on donations.
Roll it to him. Ty McCullough's life nearly slipped by before it even began 3 years ago.
Ty's been fighting since day one.
Diagnosed with 2 rare conditions from birth, in addition to cancer. Good job, Ty. Every breath has been an uphill battle.
Just being able to walk or talk, and those are things that Ty struggles with every single day.
One of Ty's most important treatments, something any and all of us can supply.
Without blood and platelet donors, Ty would not be here today.
Before Ty's birth, Cynthia Sieber only donated at work-related blood drives.
I never knew how important it was until it affected our family.
Now she gives every 8 weeks.
Everyone's busy. Anyone can spare an hour of their life to get in here and donate for someone that needs it so bad.
Kids like Ty don't get a break from being sick, so even his mom takes a seat to contribute.
If people don't donate, there's not platelets available. There's been times that Ty has needed platelets, and we had to wait a day because there weren't any that were compatible for him available.
His conditions are not curable, and each day is uncertain.
Life can change in an instant.
But his family hopes Ty's story will encourage others to reach out and offer families more of life's moments.